Your brother is so hot. Too bad you look nothing like him, Marissa sighed, scrolling through her phone while I reviewed insurance claims at our kitchen table. I looked up from my laptop, studying my wife of 8 years as she lounged in her silk pajamas, perfectly manicured nails tapping against her phone case. Even at 10:30 on a Tuesday night, she looked like she'd stepped out of one of those luxury home magazines she constantly referenced for her staging business. Your sister isn't bad either, I replied with a smirk, not missing a beat. Marissa's head snapped up, her green eyes flashing with sudden fury. Are you sleeping with Lana? How dare you even joke about that? Relax, princess. I was just returning the compliment. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair. Though it's interesting how defensive you got. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. That's completely different, Caleb. Sam is objectively attractive. Everyone says so. I was just making an observation. Right. An observation. I watched her pace to the kitchen island, her movements sharp and agitated. Like how you've been observing a lot of attractive men lately at your client events. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing at all. Just an observation. Marissa glared at me for a long moment, then stormed toward the stairs. I'm going to bed. Try not to fantasize about my sister while you're down here brooding. The bedroom door slammed upstairs, rattling the framed photos on the mantel. I sat in the sudden silence, staring at the spot where she'd been standing. 8 years of marriage, and it had come to this. Casual cruelty, disguised as playful banter. My phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Graham next door. Saw Marissa with that flashy Tesla guy again today, at the coffee shop on Main Street. Thought you should know, dear. I deleted the message and finished my insurance reports. Outside, the Maine coastal wind rattled our windows, and I could hear the distant sound of waves against the rocky shore. Our Craftsman house sat in one of the older neighborhoods, where everyone knew everyone's business. Mrs. Graham wasn't the only one who'd been watching. The next morning, Marissa was already gone when I came downstairs. A note on the counter read, "Early client meeting. Don't wait up tonight. Big staging event downtown." I poured coffee and checked my phone. 3 missed calls from my brother Sam. 2 texts asking if I wanted to grab drinks later. Sam Turner, 35 years old, 6'2", with the kind of easy smile that made people trust him instantly. The golden boy who'd always gotten everything he wanted without trying. Can't tonight, I texted back. Work stuff. Come on, man. When's the last time we hung out? Just the 2 of us? I stared at the message, remembering Marissa's comment about his looks. Sam had always been the charming one, the one who could talk his way into or out of anything. He ran a small construction business, flipping houses and renovating properties around town. Half the women in our social circle had crushes on him. Maybe this weekend, I replied, then put the phone away. At work, I processed claims with mechanical precision. Auto accidents, property damage, liability disputes, other people's disasters reduced to paperwork and payouts. My colleague Jasper knocked on my office door around noon. You look like hell, Turner. Everything okay at home? Jasper was the kind of guy who said exactly what he thought, a former Marine who'd transitioned into insurance after his service. We'd worked together for 5 years, and he was probably the closest thing I had to a best friend. Just tired. Marissa's been working late a lot lately. Ah. Jasper settled into the chair across from my desk. The luxury staging business. Must be nice, playing with rich people's money all day. She's good at what she does, I said automatically, then wondered why I was defending her. I'm sure she is. But you know what they say about people who spend too much time in fancy houses. They start thinking they deserve to live in them. I looked at him sharply. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing specific, just general wisdom. Jasper stood up. But if you ever need to talk, you know where to find me. Sometimes it helps to get an outside perspective. That evening, I drove past the downtown staging event Marissa had mentioned. The historic brick building was lit up, with valets parking expensive cars and well-dressed people streaming in and out. I spotted Marissa's Mercedes in the lot, parked next to a silver Tesla Model S. I didn't stop. Instead, I drove home and waited. Marissa returned after midnight, her cheeks flushed and her hair slightly mussed despite her attempts to smooth it down. "How was the event?" I asked from the living room couch. She jumped, pressing a hand to her chest. "God, you scared me. I thought you'd be asleep." "Couldn't sleep. How was it?" "Fine. Good turnout. Lots of potential buyers." She kicked off her heels and headed for the stairs. "I'm exhausted. See you in the morning." "Marissa." She paused on the bottom step. "What?" "Who drives the Tesla?" For just a moment, her composure cracked. I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, fear, or maybe just annoyance at being caught off guard. "What Tesla?" "The one parked next to your car tonight." "I have no idea. There were dozens of cars there, Caleb. I don't memorize everyone's vehicles." Her voice had an edge now, defensive and sharp. "Why are you interrogating me?" "Just curious. It's a nice car." She stared at me for a long moment, then continued upstairs without another word. I sat in the dark living room listening to the sounds of her getting ready for bed. The shower running, the hair dryer, the soft thud of drawers closing. Normal nighttime sounds that suddenly felt foreign and suspicious. My phone buzzed with another text from Mrs. Graham. "That Tesla belongs to Brent Dale, developer, married to Patricia Dale. You know, the blonde who runs the charity auction committee. Thought you might want to know." This time, I didn't delete the message. The next few days passed in a strange kind of suspended animation. Marissa maintained her usual routine, morning yoga, client calls, afternoon appointments. But there was a new tension in the house, like the air before a thunderstorm. I started paying attention to details I'd previously ignored. The way she guarded her phone, taking it with her even to the bathroom. The new clothes appearing in her closet, expensive pieces that seemed more suited to impressing someone than staging empty houses. The subtle changes in her schedule, with more evening events and weekend appointments. On Thursday, she announced she'd be helping with a major staging project over the weekend. "It's a big opportunity," she said, not meeting my eyes as she packed an overnight bag. "The client wants everything perfect for a Sunday showing, so I'll probably stay at Ellie's Saturday night to be closer to the property." Ellie was Marissa's business partner and best friend, a willowy brunette who specialized in luxury home staging. They'd been friends since college and had started their business together 3 years ago. "Which property?" I asked. "The waterfront mansion on Elm Point. You know, the one that's been on the market for months." I nodded, though something about her explanation felt rehearsed. "Need any help moving furniture?" "No, we've got it handled. Besides, you'd just be bored." Saturday morning, I watched her load her car with staging supplies and an overnight bag. She kissed my cheek perfunctorily and drove away, leaving me alone in our suddenly too quiet house. I spent the morning doing yard work, trying to keep my hands busy while my mind raced. Around noon, Jasper called. "Want to grab lunch? My treat." We met at the Knot, a local bar and grill that served as an unofficial gathering place for the working-class crowd in our town. The kind of place where everyone knew your name and your business, whether you wanted them to or not. "So where's the missus today?" Jasper asked as we settled into a corner booth. "Working. Big staging project." "On a Saturday?" "Rich people don't keep normal schedules." Jasper nodded, but I could see the skepticism in his eyes. We ordered burgers and beer, falling into easy conversation about work and local gossip. The bar was busy with the usual Saturday crowd, construction workers, fishermen, and other blue-collar folks unwinding after a long week. That's when I saw him. Brent Dale walked in like he owned the place, his expensive casual clothes and perfectly styled hair marking him as an outsider immediately. He was tall and lean, with the kind of confident bearing that came from never having to worry about money. The kind of man Marissa would call objectively attractive. He scanned the room, his gaze sliding over the regular patrons with barely concealed disdain, then walked to the bar and ordered something that probably cost more than most people's lunch. "Friend of yours?" Jasper followed my gaze. Something like that. I watched Brent check his phone repeatedly, clearly waiting for someone. After 15 minutes, he finished his drink and headed for the door. As he passed our table, his phone buzzed with a text. The screen was visible for just a moment, but long enough for me to see the sender's name, Marissa. The message preview read, "Running late, meet you at the usual." The rest was cut off as Brent quickly pocketed the phone and left. "You okay?" Jasper was studying my face with concern. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Yeah, just remembered something I need to take care of." I threw money on the table and followed Brent outside, keeping my distance as he got into his Tesla and drove toward downtown. Instead of following him, I drove home and did something I'd never done before in 8 years of marriage. I searched Marissa's home office. Her desk was meticulously organized, with client files arranged alphabetically and staging photos displayed in neat portfolios. But tucked behind her computer monitor, I found a small notebook filled with appointments and phone numbers. Most of the entries were clearly business-related, but scattered throughout were notations that made my stomach clench. B. Harbor Inn, 2 p.m. Weekend trip, Portland. B's anniversary, Patricia out of town. The dates corresponded perfectly with Marissa's recent client meetings and overnight trips. I photographed the relevant pages with my phone, then carefully returned everything to its original position. As I was leaving the office, I noticed Marissa's iPad charging on the bookshelf. On impulse, I picked it up and entered her passcode, our wedding anniversary, which she'd never bothered to change. The photo library opened automatically, synced with her phone, and there, mixed in with staging photos and random snapshots, were images that made my hands shake. Marissa and Brent in hotel rooms, intimate photos, some clearly taken during romantic getaways, selfies with champagne glasses and rumpled bedsheets in the background, screenshots of text conversations filled with inside jokes and innuendos. I forwarded the most damning images to my own email, then deleted the sent messages from her account. My hands were steady now, my mind crystal clear for the first time in weeks. I spent the rest of Saturday cataloging evidence. Bank statements showing unusual charges at restaurants and hotels, mileage logs from Marissa's car app that didn't match her claimed destinations, credit card receipts for expensive gifts I'd never seen. By Sunday morning, I had enough documentation to fill a legal brief, but I wasn't ready to confront her yet. I wanted to see how far she'd take the lies. Marissa returned Sunday evening, full of stories about the successful staging and the potential buyers who'd toured the property. "Ellie thinks we might get an offer by Tuesday," she said, unpacking her bag in our bedroom. "This could really put us on the map with the luxury market." "That's great," I replied, watching her carefully fold clothes that didn't look like they'd been worn for manual labor. "How was your night at Ellie's?" "Fine. We ordered pizza and went over the client feedback." She paused, holding a silk blouse that was wrinkled in all the wrong places. "You know how she gets when she's stressed about a big project?" "I do." I sat on the edge of our bed, studying my wife's face as she lied to me with practiced ease. "Did you see anyone else this weekend, besides Ellie?" "What do you mean?" "Just wondering if any of your other friends stopped by or clients." Marissa's hands stilled on the blouse. "Why are you asking?" "No reason. Just making conversation." She turned to face me fully, her expression shifting from casual to guarded. "Caleb, what's going on? You've been acting strange lately." "Have I?" "Yes. The questions, the suspicion. It's like you don't trust me." I stood up slowly, pulling my phone from my pocket. "Should I trust you, Marissa?" "Of course. We're married. Trust is supposed to be a given." "You're right." I opened my email and selected one of the photos I'd forwarded from her iPad. So I'm sure you can explain this. I turned the phone screen toward her, showing the image of her and Brent in what was clearly a hotel room, their faces close together, her hand resting on his chest. The color drained from Marissa's face. She stared at the photo for a long moment, then sank onto the bed as if her legs had given out. Caleb, I can explain. I'm sure you can. I scrolled to the next photo, then the next. You've always been good with explanations. She began to cry, the tears coming fast and desperate. It's not what you think. It's complicated. Brent and I, You what? Fell in love? Got carried away? Made a mistake? Please let me explain. I never meant for this to happen, it just... Save it. I pocketed the phone and headed for the door. I've heard enough explanations to last a lifetime. Where are you going? I paused in the doorway, looking back at my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, as she sat on our bed, mascara streaking down her cheeks. To talk to a lawyer, you might want to call yours. The law office of Patricia Morrison was located in a converted Victorian house downtown, the kind of place that specialized in discreet family matters for people who preferred to keep their business out of the headlines. I'd made an appointment for Monday morning, bringing with me a manila folder containing printed copies of every piece of evidence I'd gathered. Patricia was a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who'd built her practice on the principle that divorce was a business transaction, not a therapy session. She reviewed my documentation with professional detachment, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. This is quite thorough, she said finally. You've documented a clear pattern of deception and financial misconduct. The hotel charges on joint credit cards alone constitute grounds for reimbursement. What about the house? Maine is an equitable distribution state, but given the evidence of marital misconduct and financial deception, we can argue for a larger share of the assets, especially if she's been using marital funds to support the affair. I signed the retainer agreement and left with a clear plan of action. First, we'd file for legal separation. Then we'd freeze joint accounts and request a full financial disclosure. Finally, we'd use the evidence to negotiate a settlement that reflected Marissa's betrayal. When I got home, Marissa was waiting in the living room, still in her pajamas, her eyes red from crying. We need to talk, she said. No, we don't. Caleb, please. I know I screwed up, but we can work through this, couples therapy, counseling, whatever it takes. I set my briefcase down and looked at her, really looked at her, for what felt like the first time in months. She was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with 10 years ago. But something fundamental had shifted, like looking at a familiar painting and suddenly noticing all the flaws in the composition. How long? I asked. What? How long have you been sleeping with Brent Dale? She flinched at the directness of the question. It's not about closeness, Caleb. It's more complicated than that. Answer the question. 4 months. Maybe 5. She twisted her wedding ring around her finger, a nervous habit I'd seen 1,000 times. But it's not what you think. We connected on a professional level first. He was looking for someone to stage his properties, and we just connected. Right. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee, my movements deliberately calm and controlled. And his wife, Patricia, how does she fit into this professional connection? That's complicated too. Everything's complicated with you, isn't it? Marissa followed me into the kitchen, her bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. Brent's marriage has been over for years. They stay together for business reasons, for appearances. He was going to leave her anyway. Was he? Or is that just what he told you? It's true. He loves me, Caleb. And I love him. The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd been expecting them. Hearing her say it out loud made it real in a way that the photos and evidence hadn't. Then you should be with him, I said quietly. What? If you love him, and he loves you, then you should be together. Just not in my house, and not with my money. I handed her a business card, Patricia Morrison's contact information. What's this? My lawyer's card. You'll be hearing from her soon. I'd suggest you get your own representation. Marissa stared at the card like it might bite her. You're serious? You're actually going to divorce me? I'm going to end our marriage, yes. The divorce is just paperwork. But we can fix this. People work through affairs all the time. It doesn't have to mean, it does for me. She started crying again, the desperate, ugly crying of someone who'd just realized the consequences of their choices. Please, Caleb. I made a mistake, but I still love you too. We can go to counseling, You love us both? How modern of you. I finished my coffee and rinsed the mug in the sink. But I'm not interested in sharing. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. You want to keep both of us, hedge your bets, in case Prince Charming decides you're not worth leaving his wife for. The accuracy of the statement was written all over her face. She opened her mouth to deny it, then closed it again. I'll be staying at Sam's for a few days while you figure out your living arrangements, I said. My lawyer will be in touch about the financial accounts and asset division. You can't just freeze me out of our money. Watch me. I packed a bag while Marissa sat on the bed, alternating between tears and angry outbursts. She accused me of being cold, unforgiving, unwilling to fight for our marriage. She promised to end things with Brent, to go to therapy, to do whatever it took to fix what she'd broken. I listened to it all with detached interest, like observing someone else's domestic drama. The man who'd loved her desperately for 8 years was gone, replaced by someone who saw her clearly for the first time. This is about your ego, she said finally, when the tears and promises had failed to move me. You can't stand that I chose someone else, even temporarily. You're right, I agreed. I can't stand it. That's why I'm leaving. Sam's house was a work in progress, like everything else in his life. He was renovating it himself, room by room, and currently only the kitchen and one bedroom were fully functional. But it was quiet and neutral, a place where I could think without the constant reminder of Marissa's presence. So she was cheating, Sam said over dinner, his tone carefully neutral. I'm sorry, man. That's rough. You don't sound surprised. Sam paused with his beer halfway to his mouth. Should I be? Most people would be shocked to hear that someone's wife is sleeping around. Most people don't pay attention. Sam took a long drink, then set the bottle down carefully. Marissa's always been ambitious. And you've been working a lot lately. Not really present, you know. Are you defending her? No. Just saying, marriages don't usually fall apart overnight. There are usually signs. I studied my brother's face, looking for something I couldn't quite name. What signs did you see? Nothing specific, just she seemed restless lately, asking questions about other people's relationships, talking about what she wanted out of life, that kind of thing. She talked to you about our relationship? Sometimes, when you weren't around. Sam shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Look, I probably should have said something, but it wasn't my place to get involved. What did she say? Just that she felt like you two were growing apart, that you didn't appreciate her, didn't see her as an equal partner, the usual stuff people say when they're unhappy. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. She said I didn't appreciate her. Among other things. What other things? Sam was quiet for a long moment, staring at his beer bottle. She said you'd gotten comfortable, taken her for granted, that you didn't make her feel special anymore. And what did you tell her? That marriage is work, and that she should talk to you about it instead of complaining to your brother. The answer was too smooth, too rehearsed. I could see the lie in his eyes, the way he avoided looking directly at me. Sam? What? What did you really tell her? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I told her she deserved to be happy, and if you weren't making her happy, maybe she needed to figure out what would. The words hung in the air between us like smoke from a fire that was just beginning to burn. You encouraged her. I listened to her. There's a difference. Is there? Sam stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Look, I'm sorry your marriage fell apart, but don't blame me for your problems. I didn't make Marissa cheat on you. No, but you sure as hell didn't discourage it. What was I supposed to do? Tell her to stay in a marriage that made her miserable? You were supposed to stay out of it. Or tell me what was going on, not counsel my wife on her relationship options. She's my friend too, Caleb. She needed someone to talk to. She needed a therapist, not her husband's brother telling her she deserved better. Sam's face flushed red. Maybe she did deserve better. Maybe you both did. Maybe this is for the best. The words hit me like a slap. I stood up slowly, feeling the last threads of family loyalty snap one by one. Get out, I said quietly. What? This is your house, so I'll leave. But I want you to get out of my life. Caleb, come on. Don't be dramatic. Dramatic? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. My wife's been cheating on me for months, and my brother's been cheering her on from the sidelines. But I'm being dramatic. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I packed my bag while Sam stood in the doorway, making half-hearted attempts at explanation and apology. But the damage was done, the betrayal complete. It wasn't just Marissa who'd chosen someone else. It was my own brother who'd helped her do it. I drove to a hotel downtown, checking into a generic room that smelled like industrial carpet cleaner and broken dreams. But for the first time in weeks, I felt clear-headed and focused. Tomorrow, I'd start the real work of destroying the people who'd destroyed me. The Harbor Inn was exactly the kind of place Marissa would choose for her assignations, expensive enough to feel luxurious, but discreet enough to avoid unwanted attention. I sat in my car across the street on Tuesday afternoon, watching the parking lot through binoculars I'd borrowed from Jasper. Brent's Tesla arrived at 2:15 p.m., followed 10 minutes later by Marissa's Mercedes. They met at the entrance like old lovers, comfortable with each other in a way that spoke of months of practice. Brent's hand rested on the small of her back as they walked inside, a gesture of casual possession that made my jaw clench. I waited 30 minutes, then walked into the hotel lobby carrying a manila envelope and wearing my best insurance adjuster expression. Professional, authoritative, and utterly forgettable. I need to speak with Patricia Dale, I told the desk clerk. It's regarding her husband's business insurance claim. The young woman behind the counter looked confused. I'm sorry, but we don't have anyone by that name registered. Not registered. She's meeting with her husband, Brent Dale, room 237, I believe. I'd seen them get on the elevator and watched the floor indicator stop at the second floor. Room 237 was just an educated guess, but the clerk's expression told me I was close. Sir, I can't give out information about our guests. Of course not. Could you just ring the room and let them know Caleb Turner from Northeastern Insurance is here? It's regarding the property damage claim on his development project. The clerk hesitated, then picked up the phone. I watched her dial, listened to her explain my presence to whoever answered. Her face grew increasingly confused as the conversation continued. I'm sorry, she said finally, hanging up. But the person in that room says they don't know anything about an insurance claim and that Mr. Dale isn't there. Interesting. Could you describe the person who answered? Sir, I really can't. Of course. Thank you for your time. I left the hotel and drove to Brent's office, a glass and steel building that housed his development company. The receptionist was more helpful than the hotel clerk, confirming that Mr. Dale was in meetings all afternoon and wouldn't be available until tomorrow. Could I leave a message for his wife? I asked. Patricia Dale? I believe she's also involved in the business. Oh, Mrs. Dale is in Boston this week, some kind of charity board meeting, but I can take a message if it's urgent. I declined and left, my suspicions confirmed. Patricia Dale was out of town, giving her husband freedom to conduct his affair without fear of discovery. But that was about to change. I spent the evening researching Patricia Dale online. She was exactly what I'd expected, a polished society wife who divided her time between charity work and social obligations. Her Facebook page was a carefully curated collection of fundraising events and family photos, including several recent pictures of her and Brent at various functions. They looked happy together, or at least comfortable in the way that long-married couples often did. There was no sign of the marital problems Marissa had described, no indication that their marriage was over in everything but name. I created a fake email account and composed a message. Dear Mrs. Dale, I hope this message finds you well. I'm writing to inform you of a situation that I believe you should be aware of regarding your husband's business activities. I have documentation that may be of interest to you. Please contact me at your earliest convenience if you would like to discuss this matter privately. Sincerely, a concerned friend. I attached one of the hotel photos, carefully cropped to show only Brent and Marissa in an obviously intimate setting, and sent the email to the address listed on her charity foundation's website. The response came within hours. Who is this? What do you want? I replied with my real name and phone number, along with a brief explanation of the situation. My phone rang 20 minutes later. Mr. Turner, this is Patricia Dale. I think we need to talk. We met the next morning at a coffee shop in the next town over, a neutral location where neither of us was likely to be recognized. Patricia was exactly what I'd expected, elegant, composed, and furious in the way that only betrayed wives could be. How long have you known? She asked without preamble. I found out last week. How long have you suspected? Months, maybe longer. She stirred her coffee with mechanical precision, her movements controlled and deliberate. Brent's always been a charmer, but he's usually more discreet about his affairs. There have been others? Of course. Did you think your wife was special? The words were cruel, but her tone was matter-of-fact rather than malicious. Men like Brent collect women the way other people collect art. They enjoy the acquisition more than the possession. I studied her face, looking for signs of pain or heartbreak, but saw only cold calculation. Why do you stay married to him? Money, social position, convenience. She shrugged. The same reasons most people stay married after the romance fades. And now? Now I have documentation of his latest indiscretion, which gives me leverage in our inevitable divorce proceedings. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Thank you for that, by the way. These photos will be very useful. We spent an hour comparing notes and sharing information. Patricia had been tracking Brent's activities for months, building her own case for divorce. She knew about the hotel meetings, the expensive gifts charged to his business accounts, even the jewelry he'd bought for Marissa using funds from their joint investment portfolio. What's your plan? I asked as we prepared to leave. I'm going to destroy him financially and socially. Take him for everything he's worth, then make sure everyone in our social circle knows exactly what kind of man he is. Her smile was sharp as a knife. What about you? I'm going to let the truth speak for itself. How refreshingly honest. Most men would want revenge. Who says I don't? That afternoon, I drove to the Knot for lunch. The bar was busy with the usual crowd, and I made sure to sit at a table where I could be seen and heard by as many people as possible. Jasper joined me after a few minutes, sliding into the seat across from me with his usual direct manner. You look like hell, he said. How's the divorce going? About as well as you'd expect. I kept my voice just loud enough to carry to the neighboring tables. Turns out my wife's been sleeping with Brent Dale for months. You know, the developer with the Tesla? The conversation at the next table stopped abruptly. I could feel ears perking up all around us, the invisible network of small-town gossip beginning to activate. No shit? Jasper's voice carried the perfect note of shocked disbelief. Brent Dale? Isn't he married to that charity lady? Patricia Dale, yeah. She's in Boston this week, which is convenient for them. I pulled out my phone and showed Jasper one of the hotel photos, making sure the screen was visible to anyone who happened to be looking. Found these on Marissa's iPad. The photo made its way around the bar faster than a flu virus. Within an hour, half the town would know about Brent and Marissa's affair. By evening, the other half would have heard the story, probably with embellishments. I finished my lunch and left, satisfied with the day's work. The truth was out now, spreading through the community like ripples in a pond. Soon, everyone would know exactly what kind of people Brent Dale and Marissa Turner really were. My phone rang as I was driving home. Sam's name appeared on the screen, but I let it go to voicemail. He called 3 more times before finally leaving a message. "Caleb, we need to talk. Marissa called me crying. She says you're spreading lies about her around town. Come on, man, this isn't like you. Call me back." I deleted the message and blocked his number. Sam had made his choice when he encouraged Marissa's infidelity. Now he could live with the consequences. The real reckoning was just beginning. The staging showcase at the Riverside Gallery was supposed to be Marissa's triumph, a high-profile event featuring her work in 3 luxury properties, with potential clients and media coverage that could establish her as the premier staging consultant in the region. Instead, it became her public execution. I arrived early, dressed in my best suit and carrying a leather portfolio that contained copies of every piece of evidence I'd gathered. The gallery was buzzing with activity as caterers set up refreshment tables and Marissa directed the placement of furniture and artwork. She looked beautiful, as always, in a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. But there was tension in her movements, stress lines around her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. The gossip had reached her, as I'd known it would. Brent arrived fashionably late, making his entrance with the kind of calculated charm that had probably served him well in business and extramarital affairs. He was tan and confident, wearing an expensive watch and a smile that said he owned the world. That smile faltered when he saw me. "Caleb." He approached with his hand extended, as if we were old friends meeting at a social gathering. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, ignoring his outstretched hand. "Marissa's worked so hard on this project. I wanted to show my support." "That's very understanding of you. I'm a very understanding person. Just ask your wife." The color drained from Brent's face. "What?" "Patricia, your wife. I had coffee with her yesterday morning. Lovely woman. Very interested in your recent hotel expenses." Brent's composure cracked completely. He glanced around the room, suddenly aware that other people were watching our conversation with interest. "We should talk privately," he said, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "Why? I thought you enjoyed public displays." I opened my portfolio and pulled out a printed photograph, one of the more intimate shots from Marissa's iPad. "This is a nice one, very artistic. Put that away." "Why? Marissa's always been photogenic. I'm sure she'd be happy to autograph it for you." Brent grabbed for the photo, but I pulled it back smoothly. The movement caught the attention of several nearby guests, who began drifting closer to see what was happening. "Gentlemen, is everything all right?" The gallery owner appeared at my elbow, her professional smile masking obvious concern about a potential scene at her upscale event. "Everything's fine," I assured her. "Brent was just admiring some photographs of his recent travels." I held up the hotel photo again, angling it so the gallery owner could see the image clearly. Her eyes widened as she recognized both Brent and Marissa in the compromising position. "Oh my," she murmured. "Indeed." I tucked the photo back into my portfolio. "Art is so subjective, don't you think?" Brent was sweating now, his expensive shirt beginning to show damp patches under the arms. "You're making a mistake, Turner. This isn't the place for..." "For what? Truth? Honesty? I thought those were supposed to be important values in our community." More people had gathered around us now, drawn by the obvious tension and the promise of scandal. I recognized several faces from around town, business owners, social climbers, and gossips who would spread this story to every corner of the city before the evening was over. Marissa appeared at Brent's side, her face pale but determined. "Caleb, what are you doing here?" "Supporting my wife's career," I replied pleasantly. "Though I suppose I should say my soon-to-be ex-wife. The divorce papers were filed this morning." The crowd around us had grown larger, and I could hear whispered conversations beginning to spread outward like wildfire. Phones appeared in hands, cameras discreetly pointed in our direction. "You're embarrassing yourself," Marissa hissed, trying to maintain her composure while her professional reputation crumbled around her. "Am I? I think I'm just being honest about our situation." I raised my voice slightly, making sure everyone could hear. "After all, you've been honest about your feelings for Brent, at least in private. Stop it." "Stop what? Talking about your relationship? But you've been so passionate about it. All those hotel visits, those romantic getaways while I was working to pay for your lifestyle." Brent tried to step between us, his face flushed with anger and humiliation. "That's enough, Turner. You're out of line." "Am I? Or am I just finally drawing the line where it should have been all along?" I looked him up and down with obvious disdain. "Tell me, Brent, does Patricia know you've been using company funds to pay for your affair?" "Because I have receipts." The crowd was openly staring now, all pretense of polite discretion abandoned. I could see phones recording video, social media posts being composed in real time. By morning, the story would be everywhere. "You snake," Brent snarled, his careful facade finally cracking completely. "Actually, my mother was a saint. She taught me the importance of honesty and fidelity, qualities you might want to look into." Brent lunged forward, his hands reaching for my throat, but I was ready for him. I stepped aside smoothly, letting his momentum carry him past me, and he stumbled into a display of staged furniture. The crash was spectacular. A carefully arranged coffee table setup collapsed under Brent's weight, sending expensive decorative objects flying across the gallery floor. The sound of breaking glass and splintering wood echoed through the room, followed by stunned silence. "Oh dear," I said mildly. "I hope that wasn't valuable." Marissa was crying now, her makeup running in black streaks down her cheeks as she surveyed the wreckage of her career and reputation. The gallery owner was frantically calling for security, while guests pulled out their phones to capture every moment of the disaster. Brent struggled to his feet, his expensive suit torn and his dignity in tatters. "You'll pay for this, Turner. I'll sue you for everything you're worth." "Good luck with that. I hear divorce can be expensive, especially when your wife has a good lawyer." I straightened my tie and picked up my portfolio. "Speaking of which, Patricia asked me to give you a message." "What?" "She'll see you in court." I walked toward the exit, leaving chaos in my wake. Behind me, I could hear Marissa's sobs, Brent's angry threats, and the excited chatter of dozens of witnesses who couldn't wait to share what they'd seen. As I reached the door, I turned back for one last look. Marissa was kneeling among the broken glass and scattered flowers, trying desperately to salvage something from the wreckage. Brent stood over her, his face twisted with rage and humiliation, already planning his escape from the scandal. They deserved each other. I walked out into the cool evening air, feeling lighter than I had in months. My phone was already buzzing with calls and messages, reporters, curious friends, and probably my lawyer with updates on the divorce proceedings. But I ignored them all. The truth was out now, spreading through the community like a cleansing fire. Marissa's staging business would never recover from the scandal, and Brent's reputation as a respectable businessman was finished. As for me, I was free. I drove home to our empty house, my house now, according to the preliminary settlement, and poured myself a drink. Tomorrow, I'd start rebuilding my life. Tonight, I'd savor the sweet taste of justice served cold. My phone rang one last time. Patricia Dale's name appeared on the screen. "How did it go?" she asked when I answered. "Better than expected. I think your husband learned an important lesson about public humiliation. Excellent. The divorce papers will be served tomorrow morning. By the time I'm finished with him, he'll be lucky to afford a studio apartment. And Marissa? We'll discover that reputation is everything in the luxury market. Without it, she's just another failed entrepreneur with expensive taste and no income. We talked for a few more minutes, comparing notes and sharing the satisfaction of enemies defeated. When I hung up, I felt a sense of completion that had been missing for months. Justice wasn't always swift, but when it came, it was thorough.